All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of Live, Laugh, Launch. Today we have Jackie Palmer with us. Super happy to have Jackie here. She's been my mentor for quite some time now. Jackie has almost 20 years of experience in product strategy, product management, and product marketing for B2B enterprise software companies. She was the 2022 winner of Top Women in Marketing, and she's previously led product and solution marketing at companies like Demandbase, Conga, Pendo, and SAP. Currently, Jackie is the VP of product marketing at Active Campaign, and she's a go-to-market advisor for Scale Venture Partners. She lives with her family in California. So welcome to the show, Jackie.
Welcome,
Thank you
Jack.
so much for having me. I'm super excited to chat with you ladies.
I'm more excited because I've heard so much about you. And based on that introduction, I think I want to be you.
You can be me. Anybody can be me. It's not
Yeah.
hard.
I'm working
Well,
on it. I'm working on it.
Veronica is still at the sort of beginning of product marketing. She had sales enablement and lots of marketing experience before, but
Yeah,
more
you need a
recently.
few gray hairs. I don't have many, but you need a few
I
gray
have them.
hairs.
I have them. Product marketing definitely gave it to me. But
I
Oh my gosh.
know.
it's
I know.
rewarding. It's all worth it.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jackie. And we're going to kick it off here with some questions. So first of all, what's your background and how did you decide on product marketing as a career path?
I came into product marketing from product management, and I came into product management from professional services, primarily because I didn't want to be traveling nonstop every day of the week. But my jump into product marketing was really because as I was a product manager, I started to realize as I sort of grew in that role, I was playing less of a day-to-day role, like writing requirements, talking with customers about their usage, and more of my day-to-day was spent on prepping sales on what was coming out and talking with analysts and talking with our customer advisory board and doing more of sort of the external facing things. And then, putting together assets because as a product manager, we'd go through what I call my lean years when I didn't have a product marketing counterpart and I basically had to do everything myself, or our team had to do everything ourselves. And our flush years when we did have product marketing counterparts, but we were still doing a lot ourselves as well. And so I just started to realize as I grew in my career of product management that I kind of liked the external facing the aspects of things. And I kind of liked doing some of the strategic things that looked across the sales process and across the sort of competitive landscape and other things like that. And so I just said to myself, well, maybe next time I look for a new role, maybe I should just look at product marketing. And that's what I did. The first official jump to a product marketing title was when I left a company called Infor and went to a company called Teradata. So that was a while ago. That was, I think, 10 to 11 years ago, something like that. Yeah.
And you touched on something when you were in product management that you were doing it all. And I'm finding myself at the current company where I'm at. Product marketing is fairly new to them, to this organization. And so I'm struggling where product managers are so accustomed to doing it all on their own, they don't know how to share it. What is your best advice on how to share that information and give it, pass the baton on to the product marketing team?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some senses, especially if the product management team has been playing that role themselves a little bit, you've got to prove yourself, right? And so you kind of have to bring things to the table that they might not have asked for. Like, can you go do some research on pricing? Can you go do some research on this feature across a variety of different types of customers that use it, or competitors that use it, or things like that. So can you do some research? They don't have any time, right? They've got no time. Can you do some research to bring them something that they don't already have access to themselves and prove your value in that way? Or can you go interview 5 sales reps and bring them some insights there into, like, this is super helpful when I sell. I don't need this feature. Like, nobody ever asked for it. Can you do some things that that bring some value that they might not have time for themselves. I think that's probably the biggest way that a product marketer can get started proving their value and getting brought into things, is really to just do some, go out on a limb, do some research, get something that wasn't asked for that might have a nugget of information that the product manager would say, oh, crap.
She's
You
brilliant.
can curse. It's fine.
Okay, good. Oh shit, I didn't know that. And that's super valuable to me, right? And I think, I just spent a year working at Pendo as product marketing lead there. And now they have these tools that are so useful for product managers. But I also think that the product managers don't have the ability to spend the time to get tools like Appendo or Amplitude or whatever. They can't sort of get the amount of time that they want to spend on diving into some of the usage details, and they can't connect necessarily some of the usage details into other things. Like, did you do a webinar, and after the webinar 60% of the webinar attendees went and used this particular feature? Like, that's something that a product manager could never get access to, even if they have Pendo or Amplitude or some of the other ones out there, without the product marketer, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah. I always say I make best friends with product management through data, for sure.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. And Pendo too. We used Pendo at our last organization, and I found what you said to definitely be true. I worked more with actually the UX team in Pendo than product managers, even though they wanted to be in there and, they were interested in it. They just didn't have the time, and product marketing was better placed to do a lot of the things that we were doing anyway. So it seemed to be how it
And I
worked out.
think the product management role is so interesting and important, and it has changed over the years, that there just isn't a lot of time to do some of these things. And so that's where the product marketer, especially if you're just getting started and you're not managing a product marketing team, and you have like you're just a sort of solo product marketer on that part of the product or that aspect of the product, you can really dive into that data and prove some, bring some insights, prove some value, and if you can combine the data with things that the product manager wouldn't have access to, even if they had the time, then that's even more valuable, right? Like pulling in sales insights, or pulling in webinar insights, or marketing insights, or website activity, some things that you can connect to that product usage. That's super valuable.
Absolutely. Very good points. Now, at your level, because you've obviously grown and you are where you are today, you work with cross-functional leaders, like tons of different departments. And so how do you prioritize your time across like strategic planning and team management and collaboration with all these departments at your level?
I always say product marketing is an octopus with at least 8 legs, if not, whatever would be a 12 leg decapus, or a like 10,000 legs, because you've got these legs into all the organizations. But I always say that your two best friends, your two left and right tentacles, if you will, of that octopus, are product management and sales. And so those, as a product marketer, those are the relationships that I prioritize the most, right? I've never had a problem whether product marketing sits, and this is the age-old question, where should product marketing sit? Whether product marketing sits in product management, or in marketing, or in some third, leg of the stool, I've never had a problem having a relationship with the marketing side, right? It's always been product management or sales that have the harder relationships that we as product marketers need to build. And so what I prioritize when I start to build these cross-functional relationships is really that, right? I try to really embed deeply in the product management team, and we've talked about all the data that you can bring there. But I also want to embed deeply in the sales team. And I think it's super important to, when you first get started, right? Obviously make connections with the sales leaders, but also go out and maybe do some interviews and some conversations with the feet on the street, the actual sellers, in a variety of different segments. If you've got down and up market segments, or a variety of different regions, inbound and outbound, those sorts of things. I think it's important for you as a product marketer to understand the differences between how the sellers sell, how they talk about things, how they, what kind of requests are they getting from their different types of customers. The more that Same as the product management runs, the more that you can bring value to them, the more that you can ask them about what is important to them and what's important to their customers, and then turn that around into, well, let me, take our pitch deck and make a mid-market pitch deck and an enterprise pitch deck if we need that, right? Or maybe there's some things that we need to put in place on the incoming side for our inbound sellers, right? When you can dive into some of that, that's the super valuable stuff, and bring those connections to the forefront. So I think it's important. Everybody always thinks to themselves, oh, I've got to go talk to the sales leader, like that's my primary one. But I actually find you need to build your like tiger team of best buddies at the seller level as well. And that's sometimes even more important than the sales leader, because then if you've got those tiger team of best buddies, they can then help you make a relationship and get a relationship with that sales leader.
Yeah, and I found that sales folks are always super happy to be supported in any way, because that's not always the case, right? From marketing or product marketing, like you don't always listen to sales. So when we do, find some common ground and something we can help them with, in my experience, they've always been, super jazzed about that.
Absolutely. You always have one, and they never feel that they're heard or that they have enough information. So when we come to them offering like, hey, we're here to help, they have a list of items and tasks for us to do.
Yeah, that's true. I also like to, sort of once you start making those best buddies and things, offer to sit in on a call, or if you've got a gong or something like that, you can listen to some calls, but then offer to present at one of their calls. Like if you come on as a special expert, they sometimes like the fact that you can they can bring you on as an expert. Somebody that's not a seller, that doesn't have a quota, that can sometimes help them progress a deal as well. And so I think sometimes if you've got that in offer for them, that's also super helpful.
Definitely. That's great. And so with all these, relationships, I'm sure that in your area of expertise, you've also faced some challenges, right? And so what is an example of a challenging cross-functional project that you had to navigate through where there was like differing perspectives? Because I know we all have differing, especially when you're working with different departments, they all have their own perspectives on things. What is something challenging that you can describe?
I think one of the most challenging areas that I've found is pricing. And as a product marketer, I've always owned pricing. Sometimes I know pricing sits in different areas, but for my product marketing teams, I've always kept pricing because I feel it's very strategic to the go-to-market and not just strategic to the sort of product aspects or the finance aspects. And so I think product marketing, because we are that octopus and because we have those tentacles, is best set up to be the one that has pricing as part of our team. However, that often means that you are dealing with C-suite who thinks that the price should be higher or lower.
Higher.
And you're dealing with salespeople who want the price to be lower and the discount percentages and the permissions to be wider. So there's just a lot of opportunity for conflict in a pricing discussion. And so that's probably the biggest one. There's always the C-level that wants to get stick their thoughts in. And so you've got to weigh the data that you hopefully have, and maybe you've got an analytics team that can help you pull data, or maybe you are a very savvy Google Sheets or Excel worker and you can work on the data yourself. I've done it both ways, right? Like I've had, again, the flush years of having an analytics team where they can pull things. I've had super flush years where I've had a rock star pricing person who can actually run a whole bunch of analyses for me, all the way to me just doing it myself in a spreadsheet, right? And so even though you've got that data, the C-level sometimes just says, no, I know it better. I know these things. This is what I've heard. This is what we need to do. This is what the board needs us to do. We're going to do it this way. And so I think pricing is oftentimes, from a project perspective, where you need to tiptoe around some of those relationships and some of those sort of cross-functional things. And it's always a cross-functional thing, right? Like pricing is always cross-functional. You're bringing in sales, you're bringing in even legal, finance, operations, product management because they might have to, even engineering because they might have to put things into the product to appropriately bill or appropriately turn things on and off, that kind of thing. So it's a very cross-functional project and always ripe for discussion, let's say.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have luckily, or maybe unluckily, I should say, I have not had to deal with pricing as of yet. The organization I work for, they have a whole pricing team and department. But yeah, it's something that I've come across, but I haven't had to really dabble into it yet. How about you, Katie? Have you had to get in with pricing?
Oh, yeah. Primarily at our last organization, in which it was very cross functional and all of those folks were involved for sure. We just had John Zilch on the podcast, and he was talking about doing pricing and packaging research. And I was saying it's my least favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
But you raise a great point, because we were talking a lot about the challenges in getting data and really creating that pricing strategy. But it's definitely also a relationship game for sure. Once you even get the data to navigate these other sides of things, because people may or may not listen to that data sometimes. So
Yeah. I
Yeah.
can see that. I can see that from like the last place we came, where we were, especially my product, I felt like prices could be adjusted a little bit or packaging can be different. But so I guess my opinion was there, but we never really did anything much, or I didn't have to do much with the pricing on that side. So
Yeah. And I think obviously pricing has a lot of external facing aspects to it, right? It's, do you show it on the website? Do you not show it on the website? More people these days are showing it on the website, and I think you should show it on the website, or at least some
totally
component of it, even if you're, a super enterprise oriented selling team. So, I think there's just a very public aspect to it that makes things more, that you have to tiptoe around a bunch more things, right?
Yeah, in the vertical space that I'm in, I noticed not only us, but our competitors, they don't post pricing. So that's been a bit challenging, but I had to get creative.
You could go look, I mean, this is terrible, but you could go look at the negative Glassdoor reviews, right? And find a disgruntled person.
Hey, we got to do what we have to do. That's a good point. I'll check there next.
Some of them are not public though. I think that's might be harder to
find. Yeah.
And all of us seem to agree that, when you can put pricing on the website, it's usually a good thing. I know from like a buyer perspective, I find it incredibly frustrating if I look on, well, first the primary website, then I look at, third-party review sites, and I still can't find the pricing, especially if I'm on like a very strict budget. That could even turn me off from speaking with sales. So yeah, for me, I think you should always be transparent on that.
I totally 100% agree with that, because the last thing you want to do is, submit and a sales rep will contact you. And it's like, oh, I have to go through the whole sales pitch. Like, I don't want to waste their time, and they shouldn't waste my time,
Well, and so much of the buying process these days happens even before you talk to that sales rep that, like you said, if you can't get to where you need to go, you're just not even going to bother, right? Like, the more barriers you put in there, the less likely they are to want to talk to you.
Absolutely. Be transparent.
Yeah.
So when hiring a product marketing manager under your department, what do you look for? What are some of the skills that you look for? Who's an ideal product marketer? And then what if they're junior or entry level? What are some of those skills that you look for?
Yeah, I look for a couple of things. I want to try to figure out, got my list of, my standard list of questions I always ask people. I want to try to figure out if they're a storyteller. So even if they have not had any product marketing experience before, can they, on the interview, tell me a story? Can they, if they don't have a current product, can they take a product that's out in the wild and tell me how they would pitch that product, right? Why would that product be the one that they would want to buy, and what's valuable about it? So trying to figure out, can they be a storyteller? And that's hard to figure out, and sometimes you ask for writing samples and things like that, but you can't really always trust it. So I just like to get them talking on an interview, and I like to have them, sort of take me through some stories and through some scenarios. And if they can talk and put a story together on an interview well, and they're not reading something, then that helps, right? I also like to ask about that, sort of cross-functional interactions. So if they've been a product marketer before, I have them take me through the question you just asked me, like, what are some of the challenging cross-functional projects you've worked on? Why was working with this team challenging? If they've never been a product marketer before, but they obviously have worked on, in college, they might have worked on a team project, or if they didn't go to college, they might have done some team things at one of their jobs or something like that. Can they tell me how they handled interactions between an end customer and a team of internal people, or just even between the team of internal people? So trying to suss out some of that stuff is super helpful. And my mentor taught me about the value of delivering what he called wow. What is the wow moment? Like, why is there something important about what you're doing? And so I always close an interview with trying to have them give me an example of what they thought was a wow moment and why it was a wow moment and what they did to make it a wow moment. And it could be an internal training class that they did, where after the end of the training class, there were like a line of people that came up to them and said, I feel like I can now go sell this and I'm going to go do it. And I, like, 2 weeks later, you proved it. And somebody came in and said, yes, I sold 6 of these the other day because of your training class. So it could be an internal thing, like that's a wow moment. Or it could be, I ran this event and we got, 10 the number of people come to the booth than we thought we would have, or could be something like that. But why was it a wow moment is both has them telling a story and has them proving what's the value driver there, like what is their definition of what a value is. And that also tells me something too. It's not, I don't even care what the story is, to be honest. I just want them to say why they thought it was a wow moment, and tell that story and get to that part.
I like that. I haven't been asked that, but we as product marketers, we have a lot of challenges, but it's very rewarding role as well. And we never stop to think about our wow moments or what we're proud of, because we got to constantly keep going.
Yeah.
And I like that. I have to sit back and
Yeah, I
think
thought it
about
was
those wow
a
moments.
super great thing that I learned. And now, actually, interestingly enough, at Active Campaign, my current company, one of our core values is creating wow. So I now can say, oh, well, by the way, one of our core
Yeah.
values.
It's really a great story for your interview.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You mentioned mentor. So here's my question. And I was surprised because you said you had your own mentor. And then I met Katie, and Katie always talks about you, Jackie, as her mentor. And then Katie was kind of adopted into being my mentor.
We pass it
Um,
on, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like,
that's
and
super important.
I reach out to others too. I've had other positions in marketing or other roles with different companies. I've never had to have a mentor, but
Hmm.
with product marketing, I feel like you definitely need a mentor. This is a lot more strategic than any other position. There's just so many moving parts. Why did you become a mentor, and what are you looking for in a mentor?
For me, interestingly enough, in my career, most of my managers have been men and my mentors have been men. And so for me, becoming a mentor was super important for me personally to be a mentor to a woman and to sort of pull in our crazy tech world, more value and more support for women, right? So while I don't have a problem with the fact that I have male mentors, I've always wanted to be a mentor to women. I do have other people that I mentor that are not women, but it's super important for me to pass that on and be able to support women in tech, because there aren't that many of us in tech, and I think that's really important. But I agree with you. I think product marketing, there's just so much going on that it's always nice to be able to bounce something off of somebody. Am I crazy? Is this really how it's supposed to be? Or have you seen this before? And I guarantee you we've all seen it before, right? The more that we've been around, the more companies we've been at, we've seen a variety of different things. And so it's super useful to have a mentor to just sort of say, yes, you're not crazy. Or, like, hey, here's an idea, try this. Or if it doesn't work, let me know and I'll learn from it myself. Like Katie's taught me stuff, right? So I find it's rewarding both ways. It's super valuable both ways. But for me, becoming a mentor, I always wanted to make sure that I was passing my knowledge on to and supporting women in tech, because it's super important.
Absolutely. I know when I crossed over from sales enablement into product marketing, my eyes were just like, whoa, there's so much more. I didn't even know where to begin, and it was a brand new role for me, brand new department for me. I had so many questions, but didn't know who to turn to. So having a mentor, I think, for anyone, even if you are experienced, because this role is continuously expanding and improving and changing, it's evolving. I think a mentor is just like the best thing that anyone in this role can have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I still call on my mentor too. It's like, it should never end, right? It should never end. Your lifelong learning aspect. They always say that, right? You should be continuously learning as you grow and keeping up with new trends and new things. So I always think, even if you are, president of this big company, you could probably still use a mentor.
Yeah, I think it was so important for me. And I had another mentor prior to Jackie as well. Well, a couple of them. So for me, it was more like, okay, I'm new to product marketing. I switched over from content and content strategy. What do I do next? But also, I was in the unique position of building out a product marketing function as I was starting as well. And then I went on to do that a couple more times too. So I really needed that external gut check. Like, am I crazy? Is this what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think also, especially when you're in that role where you are kind of the single one building things,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like your manager has a ton of time either, because they're trying
knowledge.
or knowledge. And so sometimes you just need that supplemental guidance from outside to, number one, help from a timing perspective on getting time to bounce things off, but also, like you said, they might not know if it's never existed before. Like Veronica, you said product marketing is new to your organization. Who in that organization could really mentor you properly if it's totally brand new, right?
Exactly.
So I think it's important to get some outside help.
I definitely agree with that. And I think companies should invest in mentors for their product marketers. I think it's a valuable investment. Say a company won't invest in a mentor, and don't have your pride, like I went out and I started looking for a mentor. I was on the Product Marketing Alliance page, like searching. I met with one time, and she's like a friend of mine now. She's actually going to join the podcast. And she, in just one session, was just so knowledgeable and helpful for what I needed. So put your pride aside. You don't know everything. Get a mentor. I think, we should all have one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to, so backtracking just a little bit, we were talking about what you look for in a product marketing manager or director, or whatever the level is. But I've seen a lot that product marketing is something that folks pivot to. But what are some of those roles that seem to be most successful in making that pivot? And what are some of the skills that they can bring with them?
Yeah, I've pulled people into product marketing from a variety of different parts of the organization, and also hired people that have diverse backgrounds, like content marketing. Katie, you came from that. Sales enablement, Veronica, you came from that. Both two, sort of super valuable areas that I think could make sense. I've also hired people from customer success, because they know the customer stories, they know what customers are wanting. I've hired people from sales engineering because they have a sales mindset. They're not sellers, they don't have a quota themselves, but they know how to tell a story, right? They know how to tell a demo story. They know what sort of assets might be interesting to that. I've pulled people from product management. That's a sort of quintessential easy one, I feel like. There have been people coming in even from social media, like other aspects of marketing. But I think that the thing that's most successful about all of those different people is it comes back to that story, right? Do they know what is a value driver and why that might be interesting to a buyer or a user? And so from a content marketing person, they come in, they understand sort of how to write things, and they might need to tweak some of the ways that they sort of do things on the non-writing aspects of product marketing. The sales enablement team knows how to make things valuable for training the sellers, and they know that the sellers need to have value statements that get to the outside buyer and the outside user. So I think sales enablement has a good handle on understanding the value and understanding why value is valuable. Same for sales engineering, right? I think there's a lot of different ways, and I'm sort of rambling here, but there are a lot of different ways that you can pull that out from a variety of different places. But I think that's probably the key thing is like, can you understand why something would be valuable? Because that's the most important thing, whether you're writing about something, whether you're training somebody, whether you're giving a roadmap presentation, you've got to get that nugget of value in there and tell the story about why it's valuable in a way that that external customer would understand or the internal customer would understand.
If we have a listener that's not in product marketing, let's just say, what would you tell them if they were inquiring about crossing over? Would you say, do it, it's amazing, and why?
I would say do it, it's amazing. And I think if you're thinking about it, you could start to do some research first before you make that jump. And talk to a customer or read a customer review on G2 or listen to a gong call, or the more that you can understand the use cases, the whys, the what is it about a customer that makes them want to buy whatever product it is that you're selling, that's super important. And so if you're considering product marketing and you're sort of thinking, how can I make myself more valuable and jump into this profession, understanding the customers would be a way to do that and improve yourself. And obviously it's easier to do that if you're changing inside of a company. So like, doing an internal transfer, then you have a lot of things that you can bring, your knowledge from your customer and from insights, and you already know the product a little bit probably, and things like that. But there's never a dull moment. That's the thing about product marketing. That's also what I liked about professional services is I was never doing the same thing twice. And I feel like you get that with product marketing. One day you're doing a pricing study. One day you're prepping for a CAB meeting. One day you're doing a presentation for an event. One day you're writing up a sales asset. One day you're like dealing with the crap that is PowerPoint or Google Slides, One day you're, attending a sales training class. One day you're giving a sales training class. One day I think it's super interesting, especially in this world these days. Like our attention spans are so, all around the place, even if we don't have ADHD. And so I think product marketing is a super amazing spot to be able to do a variety of different things, to specialize and try out a variety of different things and never be bored. You're never, ever bored in this role.
That was such a funny part that you said about the neurodivergence, because we actually noted that on our first episode that we were both neurodivergent from an ADHD perspective. And I hadn't really made that connection that product marketing is a really great job for
and
that.
You mentioned the whole octopus thing, and I'm like, that's true, because we dabble into everything.
We do. We've got those tentacles sticking everywhere, right? That's why it really doesn't matter where we sit. Like I said, the age-old question of where does product marketing sit? It doesn't matter. That's the point. I've had it sit in marketing, I've had it sit in product, I've had it sit in a third spot, like a strategy spot, and it really doesn't matter because of our tentacles. We can and should be making those connections across the entire organization such that you could change from reporting to product into reporting to marketing one day, and it should not change your job. It should not matter into your daily life as to where you report within the organization.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we just have a couple of minutes left here, Jackie, and I wanted to ask you, I know your recent role, you have taken on kind of a new function with the customer side of things. So do you want to talk a little bit about that and what it's been like?
Yeah, I mean, so in my new role, I've taken on what we call our customer programs and insights team, which, to be honest, it's a lot of things that I think product marketing needs to get deeper connected to, like the community. Nowadays, because there's so much more of the buying process and even the usage and expansion process that happens before you even get to a salesperson, the community is so important for that. Whether that community is your own internal community for an existing customer, or even like a Reddit community or some sort of public facing thing for non customers that are poking around. So, the customer programs and insights team that I have today has community advocacy, customer advisory board. These are super important things for a product marketer, and ways that we need to get connected. And then we also have like, content and other things, G2 review sites, the social aspects of that. I've found that there's so much overlap between what I want the traditional product marketing half of my team to be doing connected with this customer programs and insights team. And there's so much interesting things that the customer program and insights team needs to bring to the rest of the organization, just like the octopus of product marketing, that I found so far in the 2 months I've been here, less than 2 months I've been here. I think there's just so much overlap, and I'm excited to see how we can build even more overlap.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jackie. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you, and I always learn so much. Thank you for coming today.
This is super fun. And like I said, product marketers have to stick together. The ladies in tech have to stick together. So I love it. I love it.
I'm so grateful to have met you. I'm glad you joined us today, and I hope we can connect again soon.
Yes, thanks for having me, you both. And I'm excited to see the next set of people come on the podcast. So exciting.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.